Hello, everyone. So, this is the last lecture for this week, and this is just to go over the assignment that is due for this Sunday, which you will be exploring the social construction of gender and gender performance in two films, Paris is Burning and Mean Girls. So, for this gender performance film reflection, remember that it's due this Sunday. It's 2 to 3 pages, double space, 12-point font, 1-inch margin, and very importantly, remember that at least one of week three's readings, so this week's readings, must be in your reflection, and you need to have a separate works cited page. A bit of detail. So, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be exploring gender performance through an examination of the documentary Paris is Burning and the comedy Mean Girls. And you're going to be comparing both films on how they reveal or portray or discuss how gender is a performance and how this impacts our understanding of the social construction of gender. And in this, then you're going to watch these both films, and then you're going to write a 2 to 3 page paper, where you'll be required to bring in the week three's readings and discuss how gender is both a social construction as well as a performance. So why are we watching Paris is Burning? Well, one is that it's a seminal film in queer studies and theory because it was this film that Judith Butler formulated her ideas around gender performance and subversion. Paris is Burning is a 1990 documentary film directed by Jenny Livingston, and it was filmed from the mid to late 1980s. And it chronicles the ball culture of New York City, and the African American, Latino, gay, and transgender communities involved in it. It's very much a snapshot in time, and it's a very gripping piece of work. Questions to consider when watching this film. The first one is, how do the competing categories in the balls work on the idea that gender roles are a performance? For example, you will see in the ball competitions people competing in various categories such as military realness, schoolboy, schoolgirl realness, executive realness. How is voguing, which you're going to be also seeing in this film, which is a style of dance, a way to perform and embody beauty and fashion ideas found in magazines? Could this also be considered an act of resistance or subversion to gender norms? Can voguing also be seen as a subversion? And then lastly, how do the houses, which are the ones that are, the drag queens are a part of, work to create spaces of community and acceptance for those who fall outside of the rigid gender norms and the gender binary? So you don't necessarily have to answer these questions in your paper. They're just questions for you to consider while you're watching this film. The next film I want you to watch is Mean Girls. And why do we watch Mean Girls? One is, as I wrote, is that I quote a lot from it. But it's also a really great way to explore the social construction of gender and gender performance in an admittedly very heightened reality of a teen comedy movie. Mean Girls is a 2004 American teen comedy directed by Mark Waters and written by Tina Fey. The film is actually based on a Rosalind Wiseman's 2002 nonfiction self help book called Queen Bees and Wannabes, which describes very much the social cliques and culture for female high school students and the damaging effects they can have on girls. This film is very much not only about critiquing social cliques and power dynamics, but also gender norms and rules that keep these cliques into power. So while you're watching Mean Girls, I want you to consider these questions. How is everyone doing gender in the film? Why are the cliques, not only divided by stereotypes like the popular girls, the jocks, the nerds, the theater geeks, etc., but also separated by gender norms and expectations? How are certain gender performances like dress and language used to control individuals in the social clique, in social cliques? For example, the very popular girls, how are gender roles regulated by the queen of them, Regina, and the rest of her group to shame and control other girls outside of the group? And how does Caddy, who's the main protagonist in the film, how does her transformation a reflection on how gender is not only performed, but as a way to reinforce gender norms? So again, these are questions I want you to consider. You don't have to address them in your paper. You certainly can, but they are not necessary. They're just sort of things I want you to start thinking about while you're watching it. These are the questions I want you to address in your paper. You can, of course, address the ones that I said previously, but these are the ones I do need you to address. One is, how does Mean Girls and Paris and Burning critique gender norms? How do individuals or characters in Mean Girls and Paris is Burning show gender as a social construction? How do Mean Girls and Paris and Burning show gender as a performance? And then lastly, how do Mean Girls and Paris and Burning subvert gender norms and the gender binary? So these 4 questions I do need you to address somewhere in your paper. You can, of course, add other reflection and so forth, your own thoughts around the films and everything like that, but I do want you to sort of address these 4 questions in your paper. And lastly, remember that don't forget that you need to at least incorporate one of this week's readings into your analysis. So make sure you have that in there. And then you should be all set. I hope you really enjoy these films. I'm looking forward to reading your papers.